So everyone knows what's happening in Ukraine. Russia has invaded Ukraine for the past, I think, like 4 or 5 days. They've been attacking and advancing. So we're gonna talk about that. And for this episode, we have our American friend, Shuborno Anwar. He's Bangladeshi American and he's here to give like an American perspective to this. Shuborno, say hi.
Yeah. Hi, guys. Yeah, that's me. You did a very good job of introducing me, I guess. So, yeah.
Yeah, okay, so let's start. So Rafa has been researching the most about this, so take the floor.
Gotcha, guys. Okay, so before I get into the juicy part, let me just talk about a bit. Like in the past week or so, we thought that the amassing of the Russian troops around Ukraine's borders will be like a potential invasion of Ukraine. But now circumstances have changed dramatically, and we are looking
Dramatically.
into not only an invasion, but all of Ukraine's major air bases have been taken out by the Russians, and they're venturing into the region along with separatist militia.
Mhm.
And, like the defenses have been substantially dismantled. However, adding to Putin's distress, the Ukrainian military have fought back hard and valiantly. They
Yeah,
have
honestly,
destroyed
yeah.
clusters, like they have destroyed clusters of Russian heavy armory, though the Russians have taken cities of Melitopol, the Chernobyl reactor, Luhansk, and Donetsk, and
Yeah.
they've caused significant damage, but the Ukrainians have fought back hard.
Yeah,
And
for example,
as of now, we look into the present circumstance, which is the Russians have been set back afoot. Like they have been prevented from entering major cities. Like for example, like Kharkiv right now has been well defended by the Ukrainians, and President Volodymyr Zelensky has addressed his people. Like he has let them know that he is there for them till the very
yeah,
end, and
yeah.
the Ukrainian people are standing up to this tyranny and defending their
Yeah.
homeland. But we cannot ignore the fact that the Ukrainians are facing the fifth largest military might in the world. And there has been significant loss of civilian life as the Russian troops continue to push further.
So what
And
Rafa is trying to say is that the Ukrainians have fought back really hard and they're defending like every road, even civilians are fighting. Their military has been performing amazingly and they're really brave. Like for example, like the president Zelensky, he's still in Kiev. He's been posting videos talking about how him and his entire family and his entire cabinet are still in Kiev and they're gonna fight
the
till
man
the
has demonstrated great courage.
yeah.
And he even
That's
And
said
another
that he will, like he even said he's not,
acha,
not
moreover, guys,
evacuate or
I absolutely love how Zelensky reacted when US offered to evacuate him. He was like, "I need ammunition, not a ride." That was the best. Like
yeah, I know.
this guy has a personality. Like
He's got balls
it's
of
really
titanium.
like yeah.
acha,
There's
guys,
no
guys,
wonder
guys.
that Ukraine is defending so
We
well.
cannot ignore the humanitarian crisis followed by this invasion, like leading to over 100,000 Ukrainians leaving their homelands to
It
like
has been
put their
updated.
lives
Bro, it has been
into.
updated. Turns out, like last night we posted 150,000 because that was the latest figures. Now it's 368,000.
Bro,
Ayo!
Yeah, I
statistics are
know.
changing every other hour. It's hard for me to keep track of it. Like,
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
Shit.
know.
and
It's so
and
many
it's rising
Ukrainians are fleeing.
as we speak.
exactly.
moreover, like the West has been imposing sanctions on the separatist regions as well as Russia. But my question is, does it compensate for the loss of human life? Like the
Nothing
No,
people.
compensates for the law.
that's not the real reason for it. It's not a punishment. It's more like a deterrent. It's to basically let Russia know that they cannot just invade freely without consequences. And as a result, they're gonna try to mess up the Russian economy. For example, they have taken them out of SWIFT. Like for those who don't know, in simple terms, that's SWIFT is like the global financial transaction system. Like if a Russian person wants to send money to America, he's gonna have to use that. Like the banks are gonna use it. But with that out of the way, they cannot, do like the export import business.
They haven't fully taken Russia out of SWIFT, though. It's just the certain banks they've sanctioned. They haven't made the full decision of cutting the entire
Certain Russian
country.
banks.
It has
Because
barely
they
affected
can
their
cut off the
energy
country to a
industry
degree
with
detrimental.
sanctions.
I mean, I don't think it will fully like affect the energy industry because Central European countries like Germany, they're dependent on Russian gas.
Yeah, and also it's like most countries are viewing taking Russia out of SWIFT as like a last resort because
Yeah.
taking them out of SWIFT will mean that the countries themselves, like especially the European countries who are, as you said, dependent on Russian gas, they will be hit
Especially
pretty hard.
Germany.
And oil prices
Especially
are gonna
Germany.
soar. They are already pretty high.
Yeah, they're at the highest
Already
in
they're
like
really
I
high.
think 7, 8 years.
Oh
No, but
God.
I don't think Russia will stop supplying the gas because that's also their a very big source of income as well. So maybe
And it's
German.
more than
And it's
50%
also
of
their
their
way
national
of making
revenue.
sure Europe doesn't unite against them. Like they're dependent on him and Russia.
Exactly, yeah. So it's like a two-way deal. So if Russia wants to stop, they're losing the money itself and Germany is losing the supply. So
Now
they can
it's
have
like
options.
Russia won't stop the supply of gas, they'll just raise prices.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, for example, the oligarchy is being hit hard. Most of them have their cash and assets in Western banks. For example, Tanzim is like a Chelsea fan, and Roman Abramovich, who's like this huge Russian billionaire, he's been forced to, give up ownership.
He didn't give up ownership. Exactly what he did is he still has ownership of the club. He just stepped down from his like CEO position and he gave the stewardship of the club to a charity. So like basically, so on paper, a charity fund is running Chelsea right now, and
Yeah.
Abramovich is basically social distancing. That's all.
It's basically just a show. দেখাচ্ছি
Yeah.
যে I'm not there,
Yeah.
but I'm
And
actually
he
there.
has to do that because like if a Russian figure is associated with such a big club, then it's gonna hit them hard. Yeah, and also a lot of other sanctions are being imposed. Like I want no, not just sanctions. Like for example, the Russian Grand Prix won't be happening. UEFA moved the Champions League final out of Russia and
To
much more.
Paris.
Yeah, to
Paris, right.
Paris.
Yeah, and also even the Russians, they hate this. They hate what's happening. Even people in Putin's own government, the media, even general people, they have been protesting, and those are starting to get out of control because let's be honest, Russians view Ukrainians as their own brothers since they have like a
Exactly.
similar culture. So
Yeah, Russian people really like the Ukrainian people in general.
yeah,
Bro, any normal person would protest against this because this is not like humanly not right. You need to like see it like without any reason. You're just being a bully to a country with a less firepower.
Like
I mean,
one thing. Yeah, sure, go on.
I just want to step in real quick. It's interesting to me though that like Russian like the media source and everything is decently controlled by the government to where they can't really get much outside resources, but besides what their state really says. So it's really interesting to me that still, even with that, 70% of the Russian public still is anti-war. Because, for example, if I may want to make a comparison here in the U.S., where they say that there's a free media, it's the opposite. Anytime we go bomb a Middle Eastern country, it's like 87% of the country or something like that is always pro-war. So it's very interesting to me that Russia is like that anti-war, even though their media is so strictly controlled.
I mean, yeah. For
The
example,
best
they're
part
also
to
restricting
know
Twitter.
that, like, the most funniest part is that the Russian government stated that okay, you can do protests, but only under our permission. Like, bro, what?
Yeah.
You have to take our permission to protest, like, bro.
Like, what?
It's like your mom.
Vladimir Putin has demanded the Ukrainian government to denazify itself. Like I don't even understand what he's trying to say here. Could you please?
Let me explain it. Basically, in the Second World War, Russia was invaded by the Nazis. So he's actually
Yeah.
comparing NATO expansion to like the expansion of like the Nazis, saying that it's gonna be a future threat. But honestly, I feel like this is like they have like this colonialist mentality. Like they view Ukraine and Belarus and these like Central Asian countries as their own land. Like they have this colonialist mentality, like an air of superiority, so to speak.
So
You know what
you're trying to
happened
say Putin
last
is
time that
trying to
happened?
reclaim the Soviet Union?
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
Isn't
I
that
mean,
obvious?
And
obviously.
with Ukraine specifically, Putin like has at least I saw in this article that Putin considers Russia's ties to Ukraine to be sacred almost, and so this is why Putin really wants to keep keep Ukraine under Russian influence, and hence Ukraine's westward tendency to join the U.S. and the NATO is really threatening
Actually,
him.
there's like a
Yeah.
caveat. For example, Eastern Ukraine has a huge Russian minority, and Western Ukraine has a lot of like Polish minorities and Romanian minorities. So Western Ukraine is pro EU, and usually
Well,
Eastern Ukraine has been pro Russia. But because of this invasion, the entirety of Ukraine is more pro European. And the funny thing is, the official reason is that Ukrainians have been murdering their Russian minority, their Russian speaking minority. That's the official reason. But the funny thing is, Zelensky, who's the Ukrainian president, Volodymyr Zelensky, he
Yeah.
himself is a native Russian speaker. He's from the Russian speaking minority.
and might I also add
Interesting.
the
Hmm?
fact that Russia's calling it a denazification. Zelensky himself is a Jew.
I mean, he's of
Grandfather
Jewish.
fought for the Soviet Union against the Nazis.
Yeah, he's
So,
of Jewish
Yeah.
descent.
and also another historical thing I might add is that Western Ukraine and Central Ukraine as well, including like most of, or not Kiev, but like most of everything west of Kiev, was historically controlled by the Polish, and it wasn't really controlled by the Russians until the 1940s after World War II. Which is why Eastern Ukraine has such a big Russian minority, or at least Russian speaking majority, if you count like who speaks Russian as their native language, even if they're ethnically Ukrainian, and why Western Ukraine is so resistant. And that's why Western Ukraine has a lot of neo-Nazi groups, but it's not to the point where they're taking over the country. We have to and the entire thing is just ironic. It reminds me a lot of what the U.S. says when they're like, "Oh, we're going to go to this Middle Eastern country to spread liberation and democracy." When in
Yeah,
reality, it
and
just
that's what they did with
destabilizes even
Afghanistan.
more.
That's what they
Yeah,
did with
exactly.
Afghanistan, and that's why I also find
That's different.
yes,
Honestly, with
That's different.
Afghanistan, I
Right,
get
let's
it
not
because
get
it's
into
like they were
Afghanistan right much.
attacked
It's a
from
completely different
basically.
history.
well, Afghanistan is like a more relevant example, but there are a lot more
Not
Take
examples like
Iraq.
with
relevant
Syria.
Iraq.
example would be Iraq because they claim that there will be weapons of mass destruction.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Iraq
Iran.
and Libya as well,
Libya.
Yeah.
Syria, like a
Yeah.
lot of the poorer Middle Eastern countries, which US invaded and is really destroying.
So I want to talk about like all the civilians that are dying amidst this invasion and all. Like people are fleeing, as we saw, like last night it was 150,000. Now it's a whopping 368,000.
One thing, 3 hours ago, the figure was 200,000.
As stated again. Either ways,
Oh yeah, I just
so
checked it. Now it's rising again.
You were saying?
Ukraine accused Russia of war crimes, and I also looked up a lot of war crime sites, and it's actually true from what I'm seeing, like from the real time view. Russian soldiers are killing of civilians without a doubt in mind.
I mean, there's a reason for this. The
Yeah,
Ukrainians,
Zelensky
they have mobilized
mobilized
their
their
civilians.
civilians, saying that okay, have petrol molotovs ready at your disposal. If you see a Russian troop, do it. If that was the case, then it doesn't consider to be a war crime. It is considered a war crime when a civilian is unarmed and unprepared,
But even
which
then,
they
they
are
are
doing.
taking revenge attacks
They are
on innocent
not taking revenge.
civilians.
They are taking it on civilians.
Yeah, but it's hard to tell
Russian
who's a
bomb put
civilian
down an
and who's
apartment building. That
armed
is a
civilian.
war crime.
Yeah, if the person is unarmed, then it is undoubtedly a war crime,
Yes.
and it goes against the Geneva Accords.
Yeah.
No.
Which is what's
Do you
happening.
think at
Convention.
this point they care about the war crime or the Geneva Codes? All they care about is taking over. At this point, that's their main target.
True.
They have been unable to take Kiev, even despite even despite
Bro,
having air
Okay, and let
superiority.
me cut in for a bit.
see,
Let me
see,
cut in
see.
for a bit. Kudos for Ukraine for defending against Russia this whole fucking time. Like kudos.
Yeah,
Yeah,
They,
the
like
Ukrainian. Yes,
if
sir.
you
Go
guys
on.
see the articles, Russia was sending the army since 2021. They were building up the army and trying to they were showing we might attack at any point.
Yeah,
yeah, they were
Indication
building
दिच्छिलो
up.
yeah.
yeah, and also about the taking over thing, I think either Russia is just simply playing with Ukraine, जे है नहीं नहीं, or I'm not gonna take it. They're just playing with Ukraine, or Ukraine is actually defending really well. Could be both.
Ukraine actually is defending really well, and
Yeah.
the thing is, the Russians underestimated them. Let's be honest.
Yeah,
Now
like
they're
cause
sending in more troops.
yeah, because
Okay, so Russia's
remember like there
main
was like
goal
a
is to
pause in the
subdue the current
attacks.
government and put in place a puppet one that is pro-Russian and stays away from the NATO. That is what Russia wants.
Okay, so
But
here's
they're
the
being
thing.
unsuccessful to do. Yeah.
Okay, so here's the thing. Uh, Saki put in a notice like for all the Russian troops that are coming from the north and west, they already came close to
You mean
Kiev,
the
right?
east?
Nah,
You mean the
west.
east?
Nah, like north, northwest, and all that
Oh,
region
northwest, like from
from
Belarus.
Belarus. From Belarus,
Oh, yeah.
that side already came close to Kiev, right?
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
on the south and southeastern side, they couldn't even like advance ahead from the coastal line, which means
Yeah.
Ukraine is already defending really well. And there was also a short pause, which means Russia's restocking soldiers again.
Also, one thing,
Obviously.
like the official reason is that they were offering negotiations. The Ukrainians claim that there were no negotiation offers. So they're just coming up with an excuse.
Yeah, and Zelensky says that Ukraine is ready for peace talks, but Russia wants it to happen at Belarus, and Ukraine pretty sure that they know that that's a trap, and they're refusing. They don't want it to happen at Belarus.
They want it to happen in Poland, I think, or in like a neutral
Yeah.
country at
Mm.
least.
And it
Yeah,
should
because
on a
Belarus is a Russian vassal
neutral
state.
country for effective peace talks. It should happen in a neutral area.
Yeah, naturally.
Bruh, even if they go for peace talks, right? Like Ukraine is actually taking the ball, but when Russians said that they paused because they want to have peace talks, is that the same as me like, hey Tanzim, I'm gonna slap the shit out of you, and then you say sorry to me. Like that's the thing. That's what's happening.
Yeah,
You still won't stop.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like
yeah,
after he says sorry to me, I'm gonna still beat him up.
I'm gonna buy you 2 Oreo if you beat him up.
Bruh, dude's an Oreo. I can't hit him. He's too cute.
Yeah, I'm
Just
going
call
to.
him black indirectly. That's
Whoa,
racist.
hold up.
Whoa,
What?
whoa.
Ni
Whoa,
hao.
whoa.
We do not do that here.
Guys. We did
Yeah,
an
we're
entire podcast on racism. Calm down.
Kashyap, not me.
Shout out to
Yeah,
episode
Bishop,
1.
why are you like
but
this?
we took that. Yeah,
Okay,
so
so what were you talking about?
Tanzim being an Oreo.
I just no. But
Shubha,
like
this is like
Shubha,
us
why don't
24/7.
you tell us more about what the situation
Yeah,
is in
sure.
like in the US and what
Yeah, what's
US is doing?
what's it like in the US, like the general
So in the
consensus?
US, well, first, like from the general public, I have it's been very interesting because in our past wars, most of them, it's usually like pretty much besides some of the younger generation, it's full support. But here, because Russia's involved, most people are like it's either like older people are a bit more for it, they're like, oh, NATO should go in, but most of the public is pretty anti-war. This is because mainly we've been kind of kicked in the butt with the pandemic and the current economic issues that are going on. Everything's expensive. The global price of crude oil, for example, because Americans are very carbon dependent, that has gone up. And a lot of
That's
Biden
because of
blames that.
Russia. That's because of Russian gas.
Yeah, exactly. But oil is still a commodity that's like bought and sold in the market. So as that price is going up, then the average prices of the U.S. are still going to go up, even as we aren't really dependent on Russian oil. Like I've already seen that happen over here, and taking a long trip for the next few months at least on whatever long this war exists, it's not going to be really impossible for us in the U.S. Now, about our response to everything, I think sanctions. I think right now that's the best way to go because, as Russia said, they're going to do unimaginable horrors on whichever country gets involved or intervenes in the situation. So I guess it's the best thing to do. I don't want to be nuked. I don't think any other American wants to be nuked. So
No one wants to be.
yeah.
The last thing
Everyone
we
wants
want
to
is
be on the sending end, no, not on the receiving end.
Well, yeah, ultimately
mean-
yes, but at the same time, I don't want to be on either. I don't want
Yeah.
this country to be responsible. I mean, we've already been responsible for billions of deaths. I don't really want us to be responsible for any more. So
Yeah, true.
Yeah, and this is one of the major reasons that no country is like being directly like no country is directly helping Ukraine by sending troops and all of that stuff, because if they get involved on the battlefield, then Russia will start to invade their country. They're gonna declare war on
Yeah,
the
Russia did state that anyone who
and-
helps
and-
Ukraine right now, they will see something horrible that more horrible than what's
Yeah,
happening right
and,
now.
And knowing Putin, he's gonna just nuke whatever country sends their troops into the Ukrainian battlefield.
How
So
can
it's
it
like-
like
that's
allies
basically World
come
War
in?
That's an official threat. Like that's what he told the French defense secretary and the French, I think it was defense secretary or defense minister. I'm not sure what the post is called, but he replied, "You're forgetting that even the French and NATO have nukes as well."
But
Yeah.
let me add real quick though why I'm a bit confused by this is because Putin has been very authoritarian and everything for a while, but at the same time he's always been very collected. Every decision he makes, he puts thinking about this. This entire Ukraine thing for me, it feels very impulsive. It just doesn't feel like something that
It is,
he would necessarily
undoubtedly.
do.
Dude just snapped a wire, just like fuck it. Somebody's gonna die
Yeah.
tonight.
Yeah, and France seized a Russian cargo ship not too long ago because it's suspected of breaching sanctions. Sanctions are like they are being enforced. That is
Yeah, and
what I'm trying to
also
say.
Turkey cut off the Bosphorus Strait as well, so Russian ships cannot get into the Black Sea.
For those who do not know, the Bosphorus Straits go through Turkey, Istanbul specifically, and it's the only way that Russian ships in the Black Sea can get to the Mediterranean and to like the rest of the world, essentially.
basically to the North Atlantic in case of wartime.
And one thing is like Putin actually didn't need to do this. I mean, his main goal was to make sure that Ukraine wouldn't join NATO. But the thing is, by recognizing the separatist republics and sending his troops there, he basically ensured it. He did the same thing in Georgia because the thing is, NATO is a defensive alliance. It's like Ukraine joining NATO after that would be like getting fire insurance after a portion of your house is already on fire. Yeah, so all of this, in all these invasions, like there's just an ego trip.
He's basically trying to show the West that Russia has come back from like the dark days of the Soviet Union dissolving.
And he's humiliating himself.
Yeah,
Yeah, like dude,
obvious.
you
Yeah,
had all the other
exactly.
reasons to do this. Why the now?
People are condemned.
I mean, his troops haven't been that effective. They have complete air superiority and they're still unable to take like small cities.
And
I
Ukraine
think Ota Russia is just playing around. I think they're just taking a bit more time, or they're just just fooling around. Jack, but they're gonna attack and then end up taking it. Maybe or maybe not. But my question over here is, what happens if Russia fails to take over? Like, what are the consequences they're gonna face? That's more important
The
at this
main
point.
consequences would be faced by Putin himself. His own people are protesting against it. He used to be
I'm
really
not
popular
like
before.
obviously inland to hobby, but think about the global consequences. For example, if they lose, a lot of countries might end up breaking their friendship or treaties that they have with Russia, because every country
Obviously,
might think we are in threat too, first of all.
and Russia would
Can I say
look
something
weak.
really amazing that's gonna
Yeah,
happen?
and it's yeah. Well,
Belarus is gonna be like, "Fuck you! I'm not your bitch anymore. You couldn't even take a
Yeah,
country."
yeah,
Obviously.
yeah, Belarus, and maybe Crimea as well.
Acha,
Crimea,
guys,
Crimea
I
is a
have this
part of
feeling.
Russia proper now,
Yeah,
essentially. It's
Okay,
not
guys,
its
I
first
have this
history,
it's
it's part
feeling.
of Russia,
extremely pro-Russian
basically.
as well.
De facto. I mean, internationally, it's a part of Ukraine, but based on the current situation, it's basically Russia.
Okay, so Russia, like all the European countries, like the NATO allies, they don't want to get into direct aggression with Russia because we've obviously talked about it, which is the gas supply that comes, the majority of which comes from Russia. But now, if the United States manages to export its LNG gas, fulfilling the needs of the Europeans and taking control of like the energy trade in Western Europe, I guess the
Yeah,
tables are gonna turn. Like Russia will
massively.
then face heavy consequences because the countries will be no more dependent on them.
Yeah, and most of the export revenue is like on natural resources.
Western European ports are like, like constructing LNG terminals already. So the day is not far when
Guys,
they will be like importing gas from the United
it's
States.
just not gas. It's weaponry as well.
Yeah, that is for
That is
sure.
part of it. It's not only gas.
And also, in terms of money, they're losing out. For example, you mentioned that Germany was dependent on Russian gas. They were planning on constructing a new pipeline, Nord Stream 2. Like there's already one existing, there's an existing one. They were planning on making another one, and they have like basically postponed or halted that agreement. So
Oh,
and
and also
it was like $11.8 billion
yeah,
or
and
euros. I'm not sure which currency specifically.
also Russia's billionaires have lost $39 billion in wealth since the war started. The richest the richest known man, Vladimir Putin, I'm not sure if I pronounced that right. He
Yeah.
lost one third of his wealth
And
because of
this
stock prices
and
crashing.
and the thing is, this
Obviously, it's
thing
gonna
is
happen.
actually beneficial for Putin because the thing is, these oligarchs they move their black money, their corruption money, and also even their legal money to Western banks. So if they are put under sanctions, they're forced to keep their money inside of Russia, and they're gonna be more dependent on Putin.
I mean,
Exactly.
at the same time, aren't they kind of responsible for its power? So if you're in Russia and you're a foreign, or if you're a Russian billionaire and you have your assets frozen in a European country, wouldn't you be pretty pissed off at Putin? Like,
I mean,
Obviously.
It's like a double-edged sword.
obviously, but it's like they're more dependent on him right now, and Putin has
oh yeah, but
basically
also they
taken
could
their
keep
power
that power.
away. Yeah, like that was true during like the early 2000s when Putin first came to power, but now it's not.
Yeah, and same with as we mentioned already, same with Roman Abramovich. He funds Putin a lot as well.
Okay, so I have something to tell. So Germany's chancellor has said that Russia will pay a high price as Germany is increasing their national military funding to like really high. I don't know why,
Almost
but
a
Yeah,
recently
go
most
on.
country like European countries are saying that yeah, Russia is gonna pay a price. We are training our military now. We're funding them more. It's like, bro, why? Like those are just blatant just threats.
Look, the thing is, Putin is basically giving NATO a reason to exist. I mean, let's be honest. After the fall of the Soviet Union, they didn't have like a concrete reason, but now they have a
Yeah.
reason. Now European countries are gonna listen to America when they're like increase your defense expenditures. Like during Trump's era, they didn't listen. because let's be honest,
Yeah.
it was
Trump was
made
Trump.
Basically, Putin just destroyed Russia's power over the European territory. Like the support they thought he might give him, they just understood it. They're not gonna get it anymore because he might backstab any moment. No one knows when.
yeah. And the funny thing is, now he's going to be more dependent on China and also
So
Asian.
I don't know why everything leads to China eventually.
I mean, let's be
China is
honest.
already building up its influence in the southern Siberian regions.
I mean, yeah.
Like actually, if you see in this war, I think the country who's gonna benefit is gonna be China because arms and ammunitions they can be a supplier. The raw materials for it they can be a supplier. They're not
And
getting
also war
involved. Just selling them.
recovery. Also war recovery. Ukraine
Exactly.
is gonna need money to recover from this.
China would be like, okay, I'm gonna give you a loan of this much amount or this much, and then take it, and then you return it to me anytime you can. So
Yeah,
eventually,
that's
it's
China's
China
policy.
everywhere.
Yeah, it's China everywhere. But the
They've
thing
already
Damn
is,
taken over
Asians.
Europe economically. Now it's Ukraine's turn.
this has changed the entire world essentially. Now we could see more and more conflicts breaking out, more
Yeah,
invasions.
I wouldn't be surprised if China, after this, attempts to invade Taiwan.
I
Like,
mean, they could.
Obviously, they will. Are you
I'm
thinking
gonna
they are
say
not
one
gonna
thing.
do that?
I
Eventually.
guarantee this is gonna happen. North Korea is gonna like, yo, bitches, am I like for a party? Just missiles in a random ass country.
Okay. See, now the whole media attention, everything is towards Russia and Ukraine, right? Imagine China slowly moving in armed forces towards Taiwan. We won't even know. No one is gonna know.
Bro, already in Afghanistan, there's been
Like a
bombing
direct
every
know
day.
about it, but the United States has a treaty with Taiwan that if
Yeah.
China invades, then it's going to go to war.
That's not like an official thing. The thing is, they aren't obligated. Like it's like an unofficial agreement, but they aren't obligated to go to war. And let's be honest, no one's gonna start World War III over Taiwan.
Now
I
I
mean,
feel
I know
like
I
India and
sound really
Pakistan might
mean,
take
but
this
it's true.
opportunity to like get some of their tensions, settled out like a normal husband and wife situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, but by the way, what do y'all think about like what's gonna happen next? I mean, a solution isn't happening. I personally believe that Putin is just gonna keep on sending troops till he finally gets Kiev and takes over at least eastern Ukraine, or at least gets like a
50 to 60% of it.
yeah, or at least gets like a peace agreement where he gains some territory, in order to save face,
He won't.
not to make it seem like he
It's
wants
way too late
something.
for that.
Yeah. I don't think at this
War
point
is
we're
not
gonna get
going to
any
stop
peace
anything.
treaty or something. It's either Putin winning the war
There
or
won't be any
Ukraine.
peace.
Ukraine
Okay,
defending
so
their
I have
country.
a very bad
Yeah.
thing. Yeah, so
Yeah,
listen up,
Tanzim?
listen up. Imagine if he keeps sending troops and Ukraine keeps holding out. What if he loses his mind and just fucking nukes Ukraine?
They
I mean,
can,
he can, because NATO wouldn't be obligated to, do anything, because Ukraine isn't a part of NATO. So
but
that wouldn't.
but there's another reason that they can. 'Cause radiation spreads like wildfire, right? Science, we
Yeah.
know
Oh,
that.
right.
It might go. It might go towards Poland.
Also, Kashav actually raised a really good point, because Ukraine actually has a lot of nuclear power plants even
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
So
If
it's like if
if one
one
blows up, the whole thing
soldier,
blows up.
yeah, so it's like if one missile hits the wrong area and lands on a nuclear power plant, who knows?
Ooh.
Well,
Yeah. So
Ukraine's
basically,
nuclear
If
Russia
you're
wanted
making things
Ukraine, but
happen,
instead they just
technology
got
is
like
pretty.
mutants.
Ukraine's military technology or nuclear technology though is pretty well developed. I mean, if you guys don't know, back in the 90s, I think they had to give up. I think it was 4,000 nuclear warheads, something like that. They were like the third or fourth largest nuclear power after the fall of the Soviet Union. So,
I mean,
and Russia's been, I think, speaking of which, I think Russia took over Chernobyl the other day, if I'm not
yeah.
mistaken.
And one thing, you said that Ukraine had to give up their nuclear weapons. You're forgetting that the West, America, and the European countries actually negotiated the agreement on Russia's behalf because they didn't want nuclear weapons to spread. Like nuclear
Yeah, it was for disarmament because that was the
proliferation.
main foreign policy see about nuclear weapons at that time.
Because guys, the nuclear arsenals right now are like 100 times stronger than the ones dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki during World War II. So you could
Thousands,
imagine the
thousands of
devastation.
times.
It's gonna be a
Those were
horrifying
atomic bombs.
situation.
These are nuclear.
Yeah, so we know the consequences of what's gonna happen if one of them even drops.
And if it lands on a nuclear power plant,
It's like it's like getting a magic mushroom in Mario.
bruh, bruh,
If you know, you
I'm
know.
bruh.
imagining seismic waves coming down to Dhaka city from Ukraine, like seismic waves.
I mean, it's not gonna be that bad, but it's like it's a really volatile situation because if one missile lands on a nuclear power plant, who knows?
Boom.
Yeah, but like Putin has not put himself into a good situation here, and with the way Ukraine is holding out, like Joto troops Patave, the more troops he sends, like at one point he's gonna exhaust all of his resources, and it's not gonna prove good for his own economy and for the rest of the world because he's gonna try and save face and he's gonna have to try something more dramatic.
Honestly,
Exactly.
I feel like they're sending in more troops now, and they're probably going to eventually gain some land, and they're in the and if they negotiate, they're probably gonna like at least gain recognition of like the separatist republics and gain some land here and there.
Or
They
maybe
are going to
They
achieve
might
their main goal.
like for example, if I'm not wrong, Donetsk is like a separatist republic, or at least Russia
Donetsk
recognized it.
and Lugansk. Donetsk
Yeah,
and
so
Lugansk.
so Russia might take these two places over and call it a day.
Yeah, I feel like that's probably gonna happen because taking over Kiev is proving to be really fucking difficult.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
so much so
Russia
that
cannot spend.
Russia,
Bolo, bolo,
Yeah,
bolo.
yeah, Kashav,
like
go
so much,
on.
it's so much so obvious that Russia has been mobilizing the other remaining part of the military. Also, another thing, Ukraine is getting like Russia's not getting any funding for this, right?
Obviously,
Where,
it's on their
whereas
own
Ukraine
money.
is getting all the support they need. They need weapons, yes, send them over. They need training, yes, send them over. They need rations, send them
I'm gonna
over.
stop you there. Like, I guess Putin was preparing for this from a long time ago, and I have a feeling that he has prepared economically for such an invasion on Ukraine
He does have a
Not
point.
beforehand.
you have a point, but what
I
I'm
wouldn't be
seeing
surprised if
currently,
Putin has a war chest for this particular
okay, yeah,
invasion.
yeah,
Like,
you could.
I mean, he does have a point, but
Mm.
even then, they're gonna get hurt, being removed from like the SWIFT financial system and also their gas exports because they're gonna
It's
lose
already
their
getting
market.
hurt.
Yeah, they're gonna
They're
lose their
already getting
market.
hurt.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
they're
yeah, I'm getting a
still
feeling
losing money.
that Russia might just send in its entire air force if like the Ukrainians resist, because it has been a long time and they're not being able to take control of Kiev, so it's taking a toll on their economy and overall like humiliating Putin because
Okay,
this man
so
has a lot of ego, so I wouldn't be surprised if he does it.
hey,
Like
Sakib, do you
sending in the entire air
remember?
force.
I feel at any point we might see him, launching a nuclear missile on Ukraine.
I think that's an
That's an
exaggeration.
exaggeration. He won't.
If
Honestly,
he
Can't
at
risk it.
this point, I still believe that even though Zelensky and his gang are fighting bravely, I think it's still like a losing effort. I think if it's a movie, it's gonna have a really awful ending. A
Yeah.
really awful
Also, no, we
ending.
must appreciate like how brave the president. He's still saying that I want to fight. Like he's still
Oh,
not moving away or
he's
running away.
literally, bro. He's literally on the streets making videos reassuring the citizen. He could
Yeah.
like he could be assassinated so quickly by some Russian sniper on a building, but no,
But
he's not afraid of that.
here's the thing, though. I personally do not think the Russians are going to kill him. The reason why
Yeah.
is because he could be brought up as a murderer. And like, if there's
Yeah.
an, if let's say hypothetically, if they take over some region of Ukraine and there's some kind of insurgency movement, it's not going to be good because it just gives them more firepower or more fuel the fire for them to go ahead and do something like that. So I think I personally think for him, he'll just probably, if they take over Kiev, though, he'll probably become part of a government in exile or something like that.
Or he's just gonna become like a puppet figure, or he'll be imprisoned at
And
best.
even then, they're preparing for a guerrilla war. There are a lot of Ukrainian refugees in other areas, and they can be trained to, go back in and, cause
Isn't
a
Poland
lot of
already
damage.
training Ukrainian troops there?
Yeah, I mean, they're planning on training Ukrainian
Like
troops in
they're on the
Poland,
way.
Romania. Yeah, it's
I
on
think
the
they
way.
all. I think they
It's
already
at the
are,
beginning
aren't they?
But
stages.
you know what? A sad thing. Due to this, a lot
What?
of families have been stripped apart. Like fathers leaving their sons, daughters, and wives behind.
Yeah, because the fathers and the sons, they're being forced to fight.
Yes, they're being
They have
drafted.
no other option.
They have no other option.
Yeah, I was watching videos. I think there was buses heading to Lviv in Western Ukraine, and the Ukrainian military, they're stopping the buses and taking all the men who are between the ages of 18 to 16 out.
I mean, you
And
cannot blame them.
yeah,
Desperate times means desperate measures.
Yeah, so I mean,
The
honestly,
reality is bloodbath followed by utter annihilation.
Okay,
I
Sakibur,
mean,
remember the other day I was telling that Russia's just doing this to like send a message to all the other countries before to think twice before
yeah,
fucking with him. From what I'm seeing in the current situation, it's basically like, okay, fuck that shit. This is not an ego war. I gotta at least give some results right now.
yeah, they thought that they were gonna blitzkrieg their way into Kiev and take over, but it hasn't happened.
Apparently, Russian troops took over Nova Kakhovka, which is like a city in southern Ukraine, and there's like a
Mhm.
hydroelectric power plant there.
Yeah,
So, what do you like? I think if Russian forces are able to take over the power plant as well, I think it's gonna, they're gonna try and strip Ukraine of like their electricity and energy,
So
all of that
basically,
stuff.
pull the plug on them.
I
Yeah,
mean,
but
they can.
yeah, but also Elon Musk also activated Starlink. It's Starlink, right? I think
Yes, it's Starlink.
Yeah, it's Starlink.
he activated Starlink in Ukraine, and it's gonna provide internet. So
Actually, it was a very smart move by Elon himself because
yeah,
now
yeah, and is
not
it?
a whole
Yeah,
country
is
has
it?
internet. So
Yeah,
anyone can send intel instantly.
Yeah, and Ukraine's vice president was apparently, pleading to him for help, and that's why he did it.
Elon is also a chat.
Yeah, that he definitely is. It's really going to boost their hopes.
Yeah,
he gets a good amount of money out of it.
yeah, that too. But either way, the thing is, in the current situation, Putin is suffering. Ukraine, they're still fighting on, but I am being pessimistic, and I'm gonna say their end, like the end of the war, is probably gonna end soon because it's all flat land. Russian troops are gonna keep on piling in, and you can only fight on so long. So I feel like eventually they're gonna come to an agreement, and if Putin doesn't, it's gonna mess up his existing political structure because his own people from his own party, his own government are criticizing him publicly.
Mm. Okay, and
Yeah, there
he's
might be mass rebellion in Russia. The signs are evident. Like
Yeah,
rebellion might break out, full
yeah,
scale
he's
rebellion.
losing his popularity.
Yeah. And also, you know what Russian protesters are doing? The law basically, like the government basically banned protests in groups. So what they did, they're all protesting alone. They're doing solo protests, which is technically legal, but they're
But
still
they're still
being
being
They're still
arrested.
getting
but they're
detained.
still being arrested. So, but I feel like that's not gonna have any long term impact because what they're doing is still under the law. They'll probably get out of it. The people who are being arrested.
Or
Think
they'll
of all the
just trump up a
Karens going
random
out right now.
charge. or they'll mysteriously jump out their window.
Yeah, so Nihal's internet went out. So, and we talked about everything that is to cover. I mean, until more information comes in, we cannot say anything more. So let's end it. And honestly, I would like to say, I would like to end this by saying that hopefully Ukraine civilian casualties and casualties in general, hopefully the number will not be that high, and hopefully we can come to an agreement or something soon, because this warfare, even Russians and even Ukrainians, both sides do not want this, and this is wrong. It's a war of aggression, and it's wrong, and it's against 21st century ideals.
It's
Yeah,
not
You
even about
you cannot
ideals
show
now.
up to claim an old empire in the 21st century.
This is the same as like
and
your bullies bullying at school. Not good, right, man? Not right.
and yeah, and
Definitely.
we would also like to thank Shuborno Anwar for joining us and being a part of this
Yeah.
episode and sharing his useful insight.
Yeah, thank you guys for allowing me to speak over here. I've enjoyed it. It's been pretty interesting so far. So thank you.